having structured days, scheduling, time management, the effort that we know we need to put in. When we come up against a challenge, it's not like, oh, do we quit? It's how do we navigate through this in business?
Hey, AJ, Alani, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited we're going to dive into a number of things today, but I always like to just kind of go back to the beginning. I'm curious, how'd you guys get into the construction world?
I started construction when I was a kid. My dad had a construction company out in California, and I just kind of grew up pushing a broom around the job site, just kind of doing slave labor for him. And then when I went to BYU, I ended up studying construction management. So, and that's kind of what, in my adult life, what brought me back to construction.
Right on. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us get started that way, just, cleaning up stuff on the job site, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess, maybe let's dive into schooling. I know you guys both did construction management. So what was the idea there? And then maybe just talk about kind of balancing, school and football, because that's another thing that you guys are involved with, and that can be challenging.
Yeah, so we both studied construction management at BYU. It was definitely a more challenging major there. It was one of the longer ones, more involved.
It was the longest one.
Yeah, it was the longest one.
Officially the longest major.
It's changed since then. Yeah, they've cut out credits. But yeah, it was pretty tough to juggle the two. We had to spend a lot of time at football, obviously, and then construction management took up a lot of our time as well.
Yeah. I'm curious, how did you guys go about balancing that? I played football in college, but nothing like what you guys did. It was a really small D3 school, and we had like 30 kids on our team. So, but it was still, I remember the 2-a-days and the practices after school, and then you're studying film and looking at plays, and then you got to do all your work. So I'm curious, how did you guys, balance that, or did you use any strategies? Because you had the longest, toughest major plus football, and that's pretty grueling.
Yeah, when you're that young, I feel like you just kind of go with it. You don't really know anything else. So it's just kind of, it is what it is. And I don't know, I didn't feel like it was a big burden at the time. Did you? I feel like, I don't know, I just kind of did football in the morning, went to school all day, and then I've been married since my freshman year in college, so I had my family as well. So I would just do football in the morning, school all day, and then when I get home, I'll just be with my family. So it was definitely, I guess, a grueling time. But I didn't have any structures or any, I guess, tactics that I used to kind of stay on top of everything. I feel like it just kind of flowed the way it did, and it was a grind, but we made it through it.
Yeah, they had good academic advisors at BYU that helped us out to structure our classes to make sure that didn't interfere with football, but it was a lot of hours that we had to put in.
Yeah, it's funny. I forget I'll probably butcher the saying, but it's like, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, just because they have figured out, like, hey, I do this, and you kind of, like, what I'm hearing is you guys just kind of did it, and you make it. It's kind of like, well, that's the only choice, so you kind of figure out how to do it. And I think you do it just because you literally go from one thing to the next, and you don't have a lot of that, like, dead time, where it's just like, oh, I just sat around for an hour, or goofed off. It's like, there's not really time for that. So, well, I'm always curious. I'd love to hear either like just kind of like a fun college football moment. Did you have like a favorite play or game, or like, did you play against anyone where you're like, oh man, that was brutal going up against that guy?
Yeah. Do you have any off the top of your head, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
So I guess I played in the NFL as well. So I guess one of my most memorable moments was playing versus the Seahawks. And I've always heard stories of like stadiums being so loud that like I could be screaming at AJ right here and he couldn't hear me. And that's how it was there. Like I could just feel the ground shaking. Like, I don't know, it was pretty crazy. I would just be yelling out calls and no one could hear me. And that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of one of the cooler moments I had in football.
Yeah, that's why I feel like they try to like say that, the announcers do, when you're watching a game on TV. You're like, this place is really loud, and you're just watching, you're like, yeah, I don't know, like how loud can it be? But yeah, when you're on the field, I'm sure it's completely different.
Yeah, and that never happened for me in college or anything. I mean, it got loud, but definitely the Seahawks stadium was crazy. I definitely will always remember that.
Yeah, and then I think one of the most memorable thing for me in college was just hanging out with all my buddies and like the friendships that we made through going through football. And like it was a grind and practices were tough. Fall camps were insane, and it kind of just brought us all together. And we have like this lasting bond, like me and Alani and a few of the guys that we still stay in contact. We still, hang out on holidays. All of our families come together. And so we have that lasting bond with each other because we basically went through, quote unquote, quote, war together. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've played a number of sports just growing up and everything, and then playing football. It's a different level of camaraderie, I feel like, and I think you said it pretty well. Like you go through war, you go through battle, like every week. Even just practices sometimes feel like a battle, and so yeah. I have a group of college buddies, and we still get together once a year. We go down to Arizona and we sit in a hot tub for 3 days and just shoot the shit. And but it's like those bonds are really, really strong because of what you go through together. So that's super cool to hear. So I'm always curious too, or I guess we'll shift to like business in a few minutes, but NCAA, they've been going through a lot of these changes around, the name, image, likeness, and kind of being able to take on sponsors or earn money for the talent, that they have. So just curious, you guys are close to that world. Any general thoughts on those kind of changes that we're seeing there?
First of all, it's jealousy, I would say. I would have made some money.
Yeah, it should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, but then when I also think about it, I don't know, I have a lot of different thoughts about it. I think first of all, it's going to be interesting to see how like the star players on your team, the quarterback, they're going to be making, way more money than maybe, just a random guy on the team. And I just kind of, I don't know, I think the whole team aspect is going to get a little weird with you guys on a team making hundreds of thousands. Meanwhile, other guys are still making their monthly check from the school and that's it. So I don't know, it's going to be kind of crazy. So
yeah, and I think it'll widen the gap because these bigger schools with a lot more money from their boosters can get, these guys and pay them a lot more. But I think it'll also help some of the smaller schools because the smaller schools can get some guys that want to be kind of a big fish in a little pond, and so they can capitalize that way.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing we do know is it's just going to change the landscape significantly. And you guys hit on a couple of different ways. I'm sure those will happen. And then we'll see some other changes that we like can't quite anticipate yet. But yeah, the team dynamics, that'll be really interesting. Yeah, somebody that's pulling in $500,000 or $1 million from sponsorships, and then some other dude that's just, like, I'm not getting anything because I'm like, okay, but I was good enough to make the team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then I also think like maybe a lot of players might end up getting, screwed over and just enter into bad deals and stuff. So I think they might need agents or something to represent the players. Because I feel like there'll definitely be some people with bad intentions trying to take advantage of guys. So I don't know. I feel like there's just so many things that this brings.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to manage and know how to like what to do with it at that age. I feel like there's going to need to be a lot of just like education around, like, hey, not blowing it all, and what to invest it in, or setting it aside, and being thoughtful with it. Because yeah, you see that already just with young guys going into NFL or NBA or whatever it is, and they start making 10 million a year, and then after they retire it's all gone. You're like, what happened? And so yeah, I think that's a whole nother aspect of it. Well, let's talk about the transition to the business world. You guys were both student athletes. What has that been like? Have you seen some similarities there? Or do you feel like there were some traits that you like built up through sports that have really been beneficial going into business?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that I feel like cross over and help us from football that now we use in business, whether that be, having structured days, scheduling, time management, the effort that we know we need to put in. When we come up against a challenge, it's not like, oh, do we quit? It's how do we navigate through this in business? And we kind of have that same mentality that we did in football. How do we get through this challenge? And we bring that over into the business world, and it helps us a lot because we've already learned a lot of those lessons through football.
Yeah, like AJ said, I think you have a lot of the skills needed to run a business, but maybe not like the specific knowledge, but like the skills and the determination is there to kind of solve problems and kind of be on your toes. So
yeah, that's a good point, because I feel like the one thing they don't tell you about business when you're like, I went through just like a business major in school, and I feel like it was all like big corporate stuff. And most of us that get into business, we end up being in small business. We're entrepreneurs. It's not like you're working for, Coke or Pepsi or Nike, and you're just kind of, some people do that, but most business is small business, and they don't teach you that it's really just an endurance, game of like enduring all these problems and challenges and working through. And it's like, okay, I learned how to run a P&L, and I'm organized, and, like some of those things. But to your point, like all those things you learn, through sports about teamwork and, challenges and determination and even just the schedule balancing. I feel like, yeah, you guys were probably in a good spot on that standpoint. I'm curious, what made you guys get into business together, and doing what you're doing now?
I guess there's kind of a story to it. So when I was done playing for the Cardinals, I came out to Utah looking for a house. And AJ at the time was building houses, and he approached me and said, hey, like, don't buy a spec home, just build one with me. And I was kind of like, oh. And he told me he'd give me a good deal and stuff. And at the time, I'm like, he's probably just trying to sell me. But when I finally ended up buying a spec home just because I wanted to move in quickly. And then I went to go finish my degree at BYU just because, like we were saying, it was the longest major and I just didn't finish. And then once I was done, I was trying to get jobs places, apply, but my resume basically said football player. So I was like 25 years old with no experience doing anything. So I was like, might as well just, start my own company. And I talked to AJ and we got together and kind of sat down and worked things out. And yeah, so just been kind of rolling ever since.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, yeah, when was that? How long have you guys been in business now?
This October will be our 3rd year.
Okay. What do you think has been the biggest win and then the biggest challenge in the first 3 years?
The biggest challenge probably COVID. Everything that's kind of thrown out at us, whether that be supply chain, whether that be pricing, increasing, 50% from when we send out the initial bid, or just the uncertainty of the market. We had, an investor that wanted to do a whole subdivision, and when COVID hit, he's like, I'm not doing that. We're out. And just things like that have been the biggest challenge. What would you say the biggest win is?
Biggest win? I guess just growing. I mean, we've made exponential growth each year. So just to look back and see that each year, I mean, we're definitely not where we want to be, but definitely just know we're headed in the right direction. I feel like that's always good to know, especially running your own business. You never know, if you're going uphill or downhill. So at least we're trending upwards.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like to say that business is like the toughest sport in the world because there's unlimited variables and stuff's always changing,
That
So
is very true.
yeah, my dad used to tell me too, he's like, whenever you start something new, just figure it's gonna take twice as long and cost twice as much to get where you want to go. So whenever I'm being impatient, because I also am like, yeah, make progress each year and you're moving forward, you're like, man, I'm not where I want to be, then that sometimes helps. But it's kind of that like short-term urgency, long-term patience, but it's tough to pull off. Well, that's cool. Well, what does the business look like for you guys now? And then, as you fast forward to like, you mentioned like where you want to be, what does where you want to be look like?
So I mean, right now it's me and Alani managing the homes. We do have like 34 employees, framing crews, that we frame a ton of houses. So we've been very fortunate in that way. In the next few years, we'd like to hire on some of the guys that we went to school with to help manage our homes for us. So I think that'd be very rewarding in the way that we're employing, our peers. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, in the future, obviously, first step is we want to kind of get out of the day-to-day and kind of be more on the front end of the business. And then just kind of big goals. We want to do 50 homes a year is kind of our first milestone, and then just kind of build up from there. But definitely our main goal right now is to just kind of build up enough where we can hire some new people and kind of get out of the day-to-day grind of things and kind of be more on the front end of the business. So
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like yeah, those are cool goals to hear about. I mean, one, employing peers or just, providing jobs, I feel like in general is just pretty rewarding. You're like, hey, I've built something here that grew big enough that it needed more, more than me, and you're supporting other people's lives and helping them grow and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's super cool. And then, yeah, you mentioned getting out of the day to day. I feel like, well, I'm curious, what are you guys each doing right now, like as your core roles and responsibilities?
I mean, we both pretty much do everything. We're the accountant, estimator, superintendent, owner.
Yeah.
I mean, every hat we pretty much just
we kind of wear them interchangeably.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty good. Yeah, that requires talent. I feel like normally people are like, I'm strong here, I want to live in my world. So the fact that you guys can do that probably at least provides flexibility if one of you wanted to go on vacation, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Well, guys, anything else that you want to leave us with, or if people want to like check you guys out and what you're up to, what's a good place to find you online?
I think our Instagram is probably the best place for recent stuff, but also our website, and kind of go through our builder funnel. And
Yeah. So it's just 10x builders on Instagram. Oh, should we redo that? It's just 10x builders on Instagram and 10xbuilders.com online.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we'll make sure to put those in the show notes for everybody. Then if you haven't listened to the show before, we always wrap with our Fast Five, which is 5 rapid fire questions, and just say whatever comes to mind. So we'll go AJ, then Alani, and we'll just fire away. So
Okay.
speed is the ideal, although if you have a longer answer, I'll usually let you run with it. So first question is
short and sweet.
Yeah, short and sweet. So favorite business book and why?
Profit First for Contractors by Sean Van Dyke. It's just helped to kind of give us a business structure, how the money flows in and out of our business, and is really, set up our accounts in a way that's very manageable for us.
Mine would be Relentless. It's not really a business specific book, more of kind of a, I guess, ideal. And I liked it because at BYU in our defensive meeting room, we had a big sticker on the wall that said Relentless. And I just kind of relate to everything in that book, both in life and in business. So
very cool. Very cool. All right. Who is the most inspirational person in your life?
It'd be my grandfather. I talk to him every day. He was an entrepreneur himself. He started a butchering business, and that's kind of how all my aunts and uncles, my mom, were raised doing that work. He's just a hard worker, genuinely good person that I really look up to.
Very cool.
Mine would be my older brother. He just kind of paved the way for me through life. He went to a good high school, and I went to the same high school as him. I just kind of always followed his footsteps. He went to the NFL, and I went to the NFL, so he just always kind of paved the way for me and made things kind of easy in life. And even now, in our adult life, he still kind of helps me out and guides me. So
that's awesome. Yeah, very cool. All right, switching gears. If you could have one superpower, what would that be?
To be able to teleport. I am so sick of driving around to projects and just different places. So that would definitely be mine.
Mine would be, I put invisible, but now I'm thinking more of I would like to fly. I
Yeah,
but I don't know why, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, just so you know, teleport is the right answer because that's the one that
right.
I pick. Yeah. So
yeah.
Flying is actually probably the most commonly picked answer there. All right, describe yourself in 3 words.
Diverse, confident, and stubborn.
I would be tall. I'm 6'5". I would be determined and I guess relentless.
I had a feeling you might throw that one into the mix. All right. Final question. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say to set yourself up for the future, whether that be in business, with your family, financially, just always kind of thinking ahead. I feel like it makes things way easier. And I feel like when you set goals and are always thinking ahead, you become a better person through that.
Mine would be respect the process. And I guess in this world we live in, you see social media, all these people like Elon Musk, and you see them like, oh, they're billionaires, but they started at the bottom at some point. So I think if you just, wherever you're at in life, just kind of take baby steps and eventually you'll get to where you want to be. So.
Awesome. Cool. Well, good advice. And yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.